The German economy grew slower than expected last year. 2021 began with high hopes, but figures published on Friday show supply issues and renewed virus restrictions at the end of the year have hampered the recovery of Europe's biggest economy. And as Sibel Karkus reports from Berlin, the outlook for this year looks the same.
Germany's economy is growing, but much slower than expected.
Economic growth in 2021 was too weak for the German economy to catch up. Germany will probably only reach the pre-crisis level later in the year. Material bottlenecks, rising energy and raw material prices, and an increasing shortage of skilled workers are currently having a negative impact on the economy.
And despite the massive fiscal stimulus by all EU countries, experts say Germany isn't emerging stronger or faster from the pandemic as its European peers. The country's economy grew by 2.7% last year, a significant improvement from the nearly 5% plunge in 2020, but still lower than economists' expectations. Hampering growth was also lower purchasing power of Germans. Consumer prices rose 5.7% year-on-year last month, well above the European Central Bank's target of 2%. In the same period, the seasonally adjusted jobless rate fell to 5.2%, the lowest since the first pandemic lockdown in March 2020. It's one sign that the country's labor market remained resilient despite rising infection rates. But companies have signaled they could soon put more workers on furlough once again. And officials are warning of serious labor shortages ahead.
Today we have 390,000 unfilled jobs, and we're expecting an increase of up to 1 million more job vacancies in Germany. At some point this will reach double figures in terms of jobs. If we do not close this gap, we will have real productivity problems.
Problems that have already been exacerbated by supply shortages. The ongoing pandemic has disrupted the global flow of raw materials and components, with the German manufacturers hit particularly hard as they depend on exports. Sales of cars, the country's flagship product, fell sharply in the past 2 years. Overall, experts say 2021 was a big economic disappointment for Germany, and a strong recovery is further prevented by rising energy costs, forcing the central bank to slash its growth forecast to 4.2% this year. The figure is more optimistic than economists' forecasts, whose only hope is that the current Omicron wave subsides, so Europe's powerhouse can roar back in 2022. Sibel Karkus, TRT World, Berlin.
Well, let's get more on this now with Sibel Karkus in Berlin. Hi, Sibel. We know many analysts were expecting stronger growth figures from the Europe's biggest powerhouse. Can you tell us more about the economic headwinds that Germany is currently facing and why growth perhaps isn't as strong as some people would like it?
Well, compared to the nearly 5% decline that we saw in 2020, these growth figures seem like a good sign, but the 2% growth last year is far from compensating that huge slump that we saw due to lockdowns when the pandemic first emerged in 2020. And also, if you look at the figures for last quarter, we saw that the economy shrank by 1%, and that's exactly hinting to what we can expect at the start of this year as well. There are factors such as record inflation that reached nearly 6% in November and December last year. There's a rise in energy cost, especially when we look at gas prices, which increased by more than 400%. And of course, there are coronavirus measures that have been further tightened every week in the past 2 months. So all of that is, of course, making an economic recovery, a strong economic recovery, harder next year. And experts say that we will see another stop and go year with the central bank and other economists currently always slashing their growth forecast as well.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz took over from longtime leader Angela Merkel last December, inheriting an economy that has been pretty battered by the pandemic, as many others in the region have as well. But he has served as finance minister in the past for a few years, so that would give him a unique understanding of the economic challenges that Germany is now facing. What is he promising to do to help boost the economy?
Yes, Chancellor Olaf Scholz, he does come with an experienced hand in economics as the former finance minister, and he also helped Angela Merkel and French President Emmanuel Macron to get this pandemic EU recovery fund going, and this huge economic bazooka that he promised, it did indeed help financially smaller businesses to get around lockdowns, but some economists say it helped to it didn't really materialize in the wider picture. But what Olaf Scholz is now promising for the long run to help the economy is, for example, the minimum wage that he's increasing from around 9 euros to 12 euros this year. And he's also promised more affordable housing, with more than 400 new homes being built in the coming year. So he does have some long-term projects that should help the economy stabilize.
As you mentioned, we are seeing a surge in COVID-19 cases across Europe, including in Germany. What impact is this new wave of the pandemic having on Germany, and what's being done about it?
Well, Germany has today, in the past 24 hours, again reported a record increase of more than 90,000 new coronavirus infections. And Germany's health institute, the RKI, says that the Omicron variant is now the dominant strain in Germany as well. And that, of course, makes it more difficult to boost the economy because of tighter lockdowns. But Germany also says that it has the most effective and most extensive measures when it comes to coronavirus restrictions, and it has further tightened these with the so-called 2G plus rule, meaning that only recovered and vaccinated people with an additional test can enter facilities such as restaurants and fitness studios. But as the daily infection rate is lower, so is also Germany's vaccination rate, with just over 70%. That's much lower than other EU nations such as the UK or France. And that's why the government is now proposing a vaccination mandate. But that might be more difficult to implement. The German government is now waiting for an opinion from the ethics committee, and some lawmakers have spoken out against it, and a decision in parliament has been postponed from mid-January to March this year.
Okay, Sibel Karkus, thank you so much for bringing us the latest there from Berlin.